a very small amount of garaging today. I've actually got a guest here this weekend, so I haven't had much chance to do a lot on the car. One small job was cleaning up the nuts that go on the pinion for the rear axle. Luckily, I've got a couple of sets of those, but you can see how they get really chewed up from people not using the right tools to try and tighten them up. So I took the best set and welded them up, just MIG welded them, and then machined them back, and I milled new slots in them so that the right tool will actually fit in those. So it doesn't really matter. This is something nobody's ever going to see until the next person comes along and takes it apart. But since I'm able to repair these things and make them better, I might as well. This unholy mess here is kind of car related. Well, it's more lawnmower related. It's just a little project I've been working on just for fun. Our little lawn tractor doesn't have any sort of horn on it, and I thought, well, I should really add something. It would be quite a useful feature. And I was looking on AliExpress, as you do, and just trying to come up with the cheapest little gadgety way I could do this. And I came across these car siren, basically. Less than $5 US. And I think that was including shipping. Oh no, the shipping was a little bit more. But basically this thing, it's all pulled apart now, but it came with a little circuit board and a little controller and this sort of horn speaker thing here, which I've got in bits at the moment. And it would make a few really horrendous sort of noises by pushing the buttons. And it also had a voice function where you could sort of talk into it. And I decided, oh, that should work reasonably well. It's actually quite loud. The circuit here uses two TDA 2003, I think they are, amplifier chips in bridge mode. It's an absolute minimal circuit to make this work. But it works fine. I mean, it's not exactly high fidelity, but it works. I have modified it a little bit. So before there was a MOSFET on here so that it would only actually switch the power on when you press the button on the little controller. I guess just to stop this thing from overheating because it's got such a tiny heatsink on it. And I removed all of that basically because it's not going to be running for that long. And as a horn, it's not going to be amplifying all the time. So this shouldn't get too hot. I've run it, had it running and timed it to see if it got hot. It got slightly warm, but nothing that these can't handle. I think these might actually have thermal shutdown built into them anyway, so if it did get too hot, it's just going to turn off. But none of those sounds were really very good, so I decided to come up with something a little bit more interesting. So the other thing I bought, again from AliExpress, is one of these MP3 player amplifier boards. These are very common, very cheap, very cool little boards. So it's got a whole bunch of inputs and outputs, and you can actually drive it with a microcontroller as well. So any sort of sound effect type thing, these are really handy, and they're dirt cheap. So all I've done is put one of those into a box, which you can't really see very well. There's a button, which will be the horn button eventually. I'll mount that somehow in the center of the steering wheel, and I'm just going to attach this box to the back of the speaker. And inside here there is a little tiny SD card with a suitable sample on it, and I'm not going to show what that is yet. I think it'll be worth seeing it on the tractor to see what sound this is actually going to make. But it's just one of those fun little projects. It's not very expensive. You can just hack around and have fun with it. It's just going to have a couple of wires coming out of it to hook to the battery in the power supply in the tractor. I'll mount it somewhere. There's plenty of room in there. It is all just cheap and plasticky, but it should be fine. It's going to be under the bonnet of the thing, so it shouldn't get wet or anything like that. I'm just going to blob hot glue all over the circuitry that I've done, just to hold everything in place nicely, and then I should be able to button this up. This is the finished unit, just with a temporary button on it. When the proper button arrives, I'll make a longer cable for it, and when I wire it into the tractor, I'll have a fuse in line with it as well. But it works pretty well. It draws a fair amount of current as well, so that's just sitting there idling. It's nearly 100 milliamps, but when it plays, you can see it draws a bit of current. It's quite loud, but it's going on a little lawn tractor, so of course it has to be loud, so that you can hear it over the engine running. One small rant is these little project boxes over the years have just got worse and worse. The quality of them these days is just rubbish. So this one comes with screws like this to hold the lid on, which are far too long, and they're meant to be self-tapping, but they never really work very well, and usually you just end up stripping the head of the screw before you even get it anywhere near all the way home. I have no idea why they make them so long, so I just used some different screws on it. It was easier. So that's done. The next thing will be figuring out where to mount it in the tractor. I should mention I finished this off with some 3M picture hanging. It's effectively Velcro, or similar to Velcro, but that stuff works really well for joining things like this together semi-permanently. The other thing I did just for fun was I reassembled the little handset, because this is the thing that's actually generating the noises that the siren actually comes with. Inside here there's a little sound generator chip, and it's quite interesting. I've got it hooked up to my little stereo, just so we can see what the sounds are like, but let's try them. That one's just a horn. These are labeled kind of strange, so alert 1, ambulance, police, spelled P-E-L-I-C-E, alarm, and alert 2. The second one's interesting. It kind of rises in pitch as you hold the button and then drops back down. Let's try this one. And there's just a little microphone in there as well with a push to talk button, and that's it. I mean, it's a toy, it's a little gadget, but it's ridiculously cheap and I guess quite fun to play with. This is the little Cub Cadet lawn tractor that the horn is built for, and I just have to bonnet up. And the way I've powered this in the end, I didn't really want to modify anything. I want to keep it all factory. So what I've ended up doing is hooking into the headlight circuit, which is here. I happen to have the right sort of connectors. So I just wired my power lead up. And for now I've just disconnected the headlights because we never use those. Well, we haven't so far. And if you ever need to, I can just unplug the connector and plug the lights back in. But the lights were the easiest place I could find that had a switched 12 volt supply. So the wire just runs up along here, and you might be able to see the siren and its control box are just mounted up there. There was a convenient hole in the frame, and I've just hooked into that, and it's very hard to see, but the horn is pointing down, so hopefully it won't fill up with rubbish. The little control box has just been taped to it with some loom tape, and there's a fuse in line with it as well there, just a little automotive fuse. And for now I just have the horn button is just a push button. I should be able to thread the wires through. I have a proper waterproof, very flat switch coming, And I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tape the wires up and just bring the switch out to somewhere here and just stick it on here with some VHP tape or something like that. I'm not going to go to all the trouble of trying to drill the steering wheel center and having the horn button there. I don't think it really needs that. So I'll probably just 3D print a little housing for the button, and it'll just be taped up in here somewhere. I can even run the cables up past the fuel filler neck maybe. There's plenty of space for the cables, so that's not a big problem. So for now I'm just having it tucked away, and it just comes out the middle there. But it should all be wired up and pretty much ready to test. I'm not sure how the sound's going to come out on this, but this is a test of it. Probably easier to hear it when the engine's not running. Oh, I'm quite pleased with that.